Welcome to the podcast where we take a deep dive into the stories behind construction business leaders. We will share how they got started, how they found success, and the lessons learned along the way. I'm your host, Eric Fortenberry. Welcome to Builder Stories. Welcome, everybody. I am here today with Dylan Martin from Absolute Design Build, located in Austin, Texas. How you doing, Dylan?
I'm doing pretty good. And yourself?
Doing great. Appreciate you coming on Builder Stories and sharing your stories. So why don't you give us a little bit of background? You know, how did you get into construction? What led you to start Absolute Design Build? Kind of tell us the backstory here.
So I'm actually a third generation builder out of the Austin area. I currently, in full disclosure, reside in Leander, just north of Austin. But my grandfather had been a developer, did early subdivisions in the area, Redbud Trail. And then my dad was his supervisor. And over time, my father had ventured off on his own and to do his things. My grandfather ended up being a tax accountant. So I just kind of fell into this. After high school, I joined the military, did a stint of service there, got out and tried the corporate life, and that wasn't really working for me. And so I just kind of found myself in construction. And that was back in around 2001. And I went through various trials, challenges, transitions. Didn't have a mentor. I was just getting by, trying to figure it out. And, you know, all these years later, I think we've got a pretty good process and the right culture, a good company that seems to be consistently growing.
That's awesome. So what's the team look like today?
Yeah, it's pretty diverse. So I have a partner named Thomas. We fell into a partnership a couple of years ago. We had both left a company that wasn't treating us very well, so we left. And we were doing odd jobs and side work, and I had sold enough side work that I told him, like, hey, let's do this together, and I'll just split profits with you, like, while we're getting through what our next is. And we ended up signing so much work that I was like, hey, have you thought about maybe we should do a business? And so we kind of developed in that realm with our two backgrounds. And then as we got established, we actually brought in a third shareholder, somebody younger than both of us that, you know, had gone to college and, you know, had some good diverse background. His name's John. And the three of us, you know, with our different backgrounds, we're just able to really start pulling this thing together. Our first 9 months in business, I think we cash flowed like $1.2 million in remodel work. And then the second year I did my projections and we did I think it's 2.3 in cash flow. This year is not quite as aggressive with the economy, but we're still going to do more than we did last year at the rate we're going.
That's awesome. How do you think to break $1 million your first year is very impressive. What do you attribute that to?
Well, I'd have been in the industry for multiple years before that, so I kind of already had lessons learned. And I'd had a construction company previously working for the one that I left, and I made a lot of wrong decisions, and the whole thing collapsed. To the point where I wanted to get out of the industry. I was just tired. But I had so many lessons learned and had seen over the years what worked. So I was really able to shortcut. I don't know if shortcut's the right word. We don't take shortcuts. But I was able to bypass a lot of the hard learning curves and go, okay, I know what didn't work. I know what did work. So let's start with this foundation for a company and move forward quickly. And so I was able to just stay really focused. And with a partner for the first time that I could count on, I was able to give him his work duties while I can work on mine and not have to, you know, overlook his shoulder and micromanage. And, like, what are you doing? Like, no, I could just focus on what I needed to. So those were some key factors for being able to move that kind of money in the first year pretty quickly. Plus, after getting out, or getting back into the business, prior contacts, so like, oh, you're back in the game. Yeah, we got a project for you to look at. So all the old architects and designers found out we were back in it, and so we did have a little bit of a shoe in on that one. So it wasn't dumb luck, and part of it was just doing good work in the past and that lingering reputation holding on.
Gotcha. So I want to come back to you kind of alluded to some different roles and responsibilities here,
Okay.
but like tell us what's your ideal job look like? What type of work are you doing?
So that's actually a great question. Our ideal project that we really shine at is whole house renovation with addition, like major relocation. I like the lot, don't want to tear down and build a custom home, but I want to make this mine. And of course, they have the money to actually do that. So that's like our smaller end jobs right now are about $250,000. We seem to be averaging right around plus or minus $500,000, and then the outliers are like $750,000 ish. And then we've got one rigger right now. It's like at $1.3 million.
Nice. And so those are all really remodels and additions.
Yeah.
Are you doing any ground up new builds?
I've done several over the years. I really want to do more, but that's been a tough market to break into, especially right now while new builds are down. So I'm putting marketing in place for it. Frankly, it's easier than what we do. So I would like to do more. Part of my strategy is, with what we do, I don't need to do nothing but new homes. But if I did about 4 a year and added that to our workload, that's a pretty significant increase.
Sure.
So that's what we're gunning for. Hopefully the economy takes a positive turn come into the year.
I'm curious though to hear a little bit more about so what do you think are the biggest differences, like kind of both the pros and the cons of a new build versus a large scale high end remodel that it sounds like you're doing?
So pros and cons. Well, so a new build is it's easy. You're starting with a blank slate. I mean, if you understand what to look for, understand utilities, understand grade, you've got a good civil engineer, you've got a good engineer general for framing. There's just so much easier because everything fits, everything works. You know what you're ordering, and I find it comical when people used to say, "Oh, or you're a remodeler. We don't know that you can build a new home." I'm like, "Are you kidding? I just put a second floor on a house and move the kitchen to the other side." Like, you tell me what's harder. Remodeling, I mean, man, it's tough. I mean, because you got the client that wants to custom pick every last detail. And then does it fit? Does it not fit? What's the old electrical like? What's the old plumbing like? What's the framing like? We just finished a house in North Austin off of 35. It was a 1970s bungalow. It was a tear down. I advised them to tear it down. They didn't want to tear it down, so we didn't tear it down. But what we ended up doing was having to replace about a third of the slab because it didn't have rebar in it. And then the framing was so bad and rotten that we ended up tearing half the house down anyways to build the second floor, which means we had to cut all the gas lines, disrupt the plumbing. So all the cost savings they thought they were going to get actually cost more because it cost more to rework it than it would have been just to put it in new. Wow. So this $600,000 remodel turned into $750 really quick. And for $750, I could have built them a stellar, brand new ground up house with. So they had a relatively a new house, but with a few old things in it. But
sure,
whatever. You
you
always try to guide them the best you can.
Yeah. What's like the difference from like a sales perspective? Selling new build versus a remodel. Are you getting a lot more one or the other from a lead perspective, and then like from a sales cycle, like the typical timeline to get them to convert to a customer?
Most of our marketing has been remodel focused, so I can't really give you a good comparison on a remodel sales focus versus a new home because I haven't put as much energy into that right now, just because where the economy is at. We will be ramping up at the end of the year, so happy to give you some information when it comes to fruition. Sales cycle, for what we do, the sales cycle is really long, and we've actually changed our business strategies over the length of these sales cycles. So, for example, you get a phone call, you set an appointment. Appointments usually the following week. If you know much about sales and business, you never schedule for the week you're in. Just don't do it. It's bad precedence. So there's a week. Well, then, they want a ballpark. Everybody wants a ballpark. So you go, you take measurements, you take photos, you spend an hour plus with them. And then, it takes another week or two to produce a ballpark, depending on the size and scope of the project. Like, we don't bring subs over. We just look at historicals and know what we know and give them a ballpark range. And I always schedule a follow-up meeting with them because I don't want to send somebody a sheet of paper with, $500,000 at the bottom and line items they don't understand.
Yeah.
So so by the time you schedule that meet with them, you've lost, a month?
Yeah.
So by the time from the first phone call, the first time you met them, you do the ballpark, and you've already scheduled to meet with them, that's 3 weeks to a month. Then they have to think about it and get sticker shocked and decide, oh, well, we do want to go with you. Well, how long did that just take? Another week, 3 weeks, another 3 months? Then we do a pre-construction agreement where we do charge, but at that point, we bring in the architects, the engineers, subcontractors, interior designer, and we get all their project on paper. But that typically takes in itself about 4 months because all the meetings, all the drawings, everything takes just 2 weeks. Yep. So now you're looking at a 5-month sales cycle to get to contract, 6 if they're fast. Yep. So I've had sales cycles and some of these projects go over a year.
Sure.
So remodeling sales cycles, if you're doing bigger jobs, they're long. You have to have enough going and enough in the pipeline and be able to move them. And we've tried multiple ways to shorten it on our end and make it more efficient. But, there's people are people. And when you hit them with like, hey, this is going to be $500,000, they're like, oh, well, let me think about this. Okay,
yeah.
I'm talking to some other people. Let me wrap my head around this. Right? Rarely is like, okay, great. Yeah, here's a check. Like $500,000. That typically doesn't happen.
Sure.
But on the flip side, when you've gone down this road with them and you've built this relationship, there's some good things that come out of that. Like, one, you want to do business with them, or if you don't, you've been able to weigh them out. Are they going to be a good client or are they going to be a bad client? On top of that, you've gone so deep into what their project is. Like, I don't start a project unless we have at least 98% roughly of their selections made. I don't want to get in a project and go, oh, well, that's cool. We have a 8 week lead time on this thing. It's stopping the whole project. No. So we spend all that time getting everything locked down so we can tell them what it's going to cost, how long it's going to take, put it into job tread, and so they can see it. And it feels really long, but that's why you got to have about 5 projects going. So with our business model and with the size of our company is, we've got 5 people on staff, and with all of our stuff, our monthly overhead is about $65,000 a month.
Gotcha.
You don't have to be big to chew through the dollars, and we're not rich driving like Mercedes and brand new trucks. It's like, that's just what it takes when you've got, office manager, 2 project managers, and then 2 owners, and everybody's got a job and we're all busy. That's just what that looks like. So
you talked about, basically you sounds like you'll go out there, kind of do some initial meeting, kind of gather, ballpark, but then you go into like a design or architect agreement.
Yeah. Yes. So we used to call it a pre-construction. Now it's called a design development agreement. And part of that is I bring in the designer, I bring in architect if needed, civil engineer if needed. I know that all the subcontractors are going to be on board at that point, because I can go and tell them like, hey, these people have paid me money to get this together. Like, oh, you have our attention. I don't have to pay them for their quotes, but they're more apt to, be Johnny on the spot for me because somebody's put skin in the game. But yeah, so we build the team out and then we start the project development phase and we have all the players in place. And
so I'm curious, how are you structuring that agreement when, if it's going to be, could be, sounds like a couple months to 3, 4, 5 months?
Yeah, that's a good question. So we're always trying to reevaluate this. I've read on or talked to some other builders that do it differently, but what I typically do is my company charges a flat rate. It's like, hey, based on the size of the project, we're gonna have about this much time into it. Our average is about 2,500. There's been some bigger projects where we put in for 5,000. And level of complication, how many meetings? I didn't design it to be one for one. Like that's not paying our salaries and our rates, but it's enough for the client, to have some skin in the game with us. And then if they turn out to be a bad client and we want to just give them the information and walk away, it gives us that ability. Sure. And I don't feel like I just lost everything by doing that. So it's like, okay, cool. We had 10 meetings and we got 15 hours in it and we got $3,500, whatever. Better walk away at this juncture than, deal with crazy.
Yeah.
So,
no, that makes sense.
But we also, in that clause, so that's our flat rate, but inside of that, we have a design rate for the designer. So she has packages and hourly. And then we also have a building designer. So the building designer will design the footprint and, all the structure, and then the interior designer overlaps that. So those are both being billed separately, and sometimes they're billed directly by those two teams, and sometimes we bill internally, but we just put that all in the paperwork. So for the 5,000 we charge, they might spend another 5,000 in designers. So
I was gonna say it seems cheap if they're getting all the plans and all the designs and everything.
They're getting everything
gone into that.
Yeah, because a lot of people are like, oh, that's crazy, that's expensive. It's like, so you want me to work for free? Do you go to work and work for free for your boss? For real. Like, think about it. Like, we're going to have 60 to 80 hours in this, and I'm only asking this little amount of money. And you get to keep all the material, like all the information that comes in. It's actually written in there that it's not says, oh, well, you have to build with us, or if you don't build with us, you don't get. No, you pay us, it's yours. We have an easy divorce if this doesn't work out.
Yeah, no, it seems
that's
seems
been
good
pretty
to have
good
that.
for us.
Yeah, that sort of get to know each other, little bit of dating is nice, because obviously you get into it. Not every customer is going to be a great one that you want to move forward with.
Well, on the front side, though, it also weeds out the tire kickers really quick.
Yeah.
Well, I'm getting all these bids. Can you make this more thorough? Yes, sign a design agreement. You don't have to use us, but, well, can you quote it this way, quote it that way? No, sign a design agreement. Let's get real here, because some of these people will just drag you on and on and on, and quickly you can go to that in your sales pitch and shut them down, because if somebody's like that, you already know that they're not going to be great, and you just can't be desperate for everything that comes along. So you just shut it down and go back to that. And I've had people come back when they're like, oh no, too expensive, or oh no, like, well, other guys doing this. I'm like, whatever. And then they call to say, okay, yeah, that didn't work out. We want to do your design here. I was like, okay, great, let's do it. So
yeah,
it's
a
good tool.
When you look at your kind of your total sort of pipeline there, like how many prospects do you have sort of in that initial stage, and then how many people do you have at one time in the design development, and then how many are in the construction?
Well, right now I got, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. I got 5 in design and development right now, and I'd have to look at my CRM, but I think we've got like 20 something in the pipeline that we're just talking to. Plus, we've got a home on the home tour coming up for Nary, the remodeled home tour.
Nice.
So it's just, I just had another one this morning. So my goal is to make sales meetings, meet people, get the ballparks out to them really quick, and then see if it sticks. And we might 1 out of 10 might stick, but it's a numbers game. Like you gotta. Give me 50 sales meetings a week. Great. I'll weed those out on the phone on which ones are good, and then go to the rest of them and weed those down to the ones that I think are going to be good. And
so how are you, like, what are you using, kind of like your criteria for what you think will be a good, customer for you all?
So weeding factors. One, I never schedule for the week that I'm in. Oh, I need you today. No, you don't. No, but unless your house was on fire and situation dictates, no, you don't. You don't need me for your kitchen today. Like,
what do you think someone who's asking for that, what's their motive?
Their motive, I can tell you what exactly their motive is. They're all about themselves. They want something right now. They want people to bend and cater to them. Yeah. They're a terrible client. The right nows are never good. Never, like, unless they had a disaster and they can tell you, like, oh, this just happened. Water's coming through the ceiling. Like, okay, I understand the now. Yeah. But, just like, I don't schedule outside of business hours. Oh, well, I have a job. I don't get off till 6. Oh, congratulations. I do too. And like you, I have a family and I like to be home with my family in the evening. So no, I'm not scheduling with you after 6. I will schedule with you from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. Monday through Friday. Well, can you meet on Saturday? No. Kids, sports, family, not being stressed out talking to people like you. I mean, it's rude. It's not polite. They want you to care to them. And the moment you do that, they want more. Yeah. And more and more. You'll find that the people that are reasonable, that become good clients, are the ones like, oh, okay, I understand your hours. How can we do lunch on this date? Or I can be home by 3. Can you do 3? It's, I know your cutoff's at 3, but can we do 3? Yeah, okay, I'll give you that. Because those are the people that, understand that, hey, we're all human. We all have families. We all have lives, and we're all trying to work and make money and do things. But never take a weekend. In 24 years, I've probably gone on a Saturday call about a dozen times. Never seen one come to fruition. And they were always rude, and it was all about them. And it was awkward. I was like, you got to know your value, and you got to feel comfortable in what you're doing, and just know your worth. And not only as a business owner, but as a human, like, don't do that to people. Don't say you're going to be there too, and then they're like, I forgot. Flaky people just don't do it. It's going to be bad.
So what are the other criteria?
Really the vetting.
Or red flags, if you will.
Red flags. So, yeah, those are sort of my biggest red flags. But, I mean, we've all met the people that are weird or slimy, and you're just like, oh, I don't feel good. Like, you have to follow your gut, because at the end of the day, you got to remember that you're walking into a marriage. There's money on the table. There's time on the table. You're going to be talking to these people every day, and they're going to be giving you a lot of money. And people giving you money makes them nervous. And right away, if they're weird about money, and if they're trying to second guess, well, what if I buy this? And because I know you're going to mark it up, and what if I do this? And what if I do that? Like, that's not going to work, because that creates warranty issues, that creates time issues. And if people can't respect your process, then they're just not going to be good. It's going to be a disaster. I've been doing this long enough, and I've chased I have to have this job. I have to make this work. On my end. And guess what? It never did. It has never, ever worked, and I always knew it. But I felt I had to get it.
Gotta trust your gut.
Nope. Red flags. And, generally, you can meet people and get a feel what their vibe is, whether they're a good person, whether they seem to be stable, understand life. You can cue people in on money. Like, that's why we do the ballpark. Hey, you realize, kitchens aren't $30,000 anymore. They're $100,000. Oh, I didn't realize that. That's real easy to roll into the conversation without making anybody feel bad or spending a lot of time. I lose a ton of bathroom jobs right now because they're like, well, how much is a bathroom? I was like, 65 plus. They're like, oh God, I thought they were still 30. Like, nope. Okay, well, thank you. Not in our budget. All right, no worries.
Yeah.
So it's just all about nicely being polite, professional, and gathering the information you need, asking the questions. I actually just turned down lost a bathroom. I didn't lose it. We didn't qualify for it because the client didn't have enough money. It was literally like, I went over there, met with the guy. I was like, so what kind of budget range do you want to be in? He's like, I don't really like to talk budget. Because, I said, let me guess. You tell the contractor what number you've got, and all of a sudden it's that price. He's like, yeah. It's like, okay, fair. Let me shoot some numbers to you then. How's 65,000 grab you? Oh God, I can't do that. How's 50,000? I can't do that. Okay. You don't have enough money to do a bathroom, sorry. Pretty simple. I didn't have to rain on his parade. I didn't spend a whole lot of time. Really nice guy. Kept trying to feed me. It was kind of interesting. Him and his wife were like, hey, can we make some food? I'm like, no. So, but, those are the biggest things I run into. Another thing people need to look out for right now, there is a new scam out, and this is a great platform to be able to tell people that haven't run across this yet. Because we just ran across this and almost made a $50,000 mistake.
Wow.
So what's happening is these scam artists are getting very, very clever. So what they're doing is they're looking for properties that have recently sold within a matter of days. The reason that's important is because the selling and buying information isn't uploaded on a state website yet. You can figure out who sold it, and it looks legitimate if you check it on the websites. But not all the information is there yet. So what they'll do is they'll say, hey, I'm out of state, but I just acquired this property. I want to get into a design agreement, or I want you to build this thing. And like, we wrote up a design agreement. We've had people call us from California all the time. It didn't seem unusual. And then I couldn't get a meeting with him. He's out of state. Okay, fine. Talked to him on the phone a lot. He signed the design agreement, sent it in, and then he's like, well, I'm going to send you payment. I was like, okay, great. He's like, hey, there's an outbuilding on the property, which I've driven by the property. There was an outbuilding. All right. Well, the owner is going to keep the outbuilding, but it needs to be disconnected. Can you handle that for me? I was like, yeah, sure. No problem. And he said, okay, well, he can meet you there on X day, and I'm going to send you this check. I was like, okay, cool. My agreement's paid for. He's sending me a check. We go look at the property. I'm going to meet the seller. Big deal. Get another call. Hey, could you do me a favor? Yeah, what's that? Hey, since you're meeting the seller, I'm sending you an envelope with a check in it. Can you get, I owe him, I decided that I got to pay him for this other widget. Whatever, I can't remember exactly what it was, but you need to pay him for something. Can you just give him this check for me? Odd. Not totally slimy yet, but odd. So the check comes in the mail, and it's not 2 checks, it's 1 check. Big glaring red flag there. So the guy tells me he's in California, but the number he's calling me was a Louisiana number. The check was written by a company in Texas, but it was mailed from Pennsylvania on the postage markage. A lot of red flags there. A lot of people aren't going to look that close. Or they're going to be like, oh, man, this is a lot of money. Oh, he put it all in 1 check instead of 2. So the guy calls me like, my secretary made a mistake. She put all that money in 1 check. Can you write him a check to balance this out? People hungry have clearly said yes, so this wouldn't be a thing. So I actually took that check to my bank to find out, like, okay, I know this is fraud. I just don't understand how it's working. Like, explain this to me.
Yeah.
So what they're doing is they're stealing checks from companies, not individuals. Individual, you write a check, it pops up on our phone, like, oh, hey, what was that? We call the bank. It gets shut down.
Yeah.
Companies don't move like their accounting that fast because you got 10 days for a check to clear. It usually takes companies about 30 days to reconcile monthly, if not 60. So that check clears, they get their money, and they're gone before the company ever finds out. So I was really surprised at how, sophisticated the scam was. You can argue like, oh, well, you should know this because, the way he asked about the check. Yeah. Let's be real. A lot of people don't catch that stuff or it wouldn't be such a big deal.
Yeah.
But the level of sophistication of knowing the sell of the property, the details to it, all these things. I did find the proper owner of the check because his name was on it. The company called him up, told him what's going on, had him close his accounts, turned the check over to the fraud division of the bank. So maybe they'll get somebody, but just putting it out there, this is a relatively new thing. So any builders out there, like, man, do your homework, pay attention, and if something doesn't feel right, it is not.
Yeah,
follow your instincts.
Gotta listen to your gut. Yeah, that's great. I appreciate you sharing that story. Certainly don't ever want to hear about situations like that, and it's terrible that people out there are doing that, but it's just reality these days. So I guess when you started talking about having a partner, your business partner here, it sounds like you took on another one. I mean, I could tell you're really excited about that. Like, what? Yeah. When you went into this, this partnership to create this business, like, how did you decide, that you wanted to bring on a partner? How did you guys structure, your roles? Like, what do you do all day? What's he do all day? How's that all shake out?
Good questions. And so the partnership really came from necessity. With he and I working at the previous place, and it was a little bit of a toxic environment, and so he quit one day and I got fired the next day, full disclosure. And we were both project managers, and there wasn't enough projects for two managers, so I developed a hierarchy. He liked being in the truck talking to the guys, and I was doing more of the office stuff and, at the desk. So it worked. The company owner decided they didn't like that because, well, they just had control issues. So they got mad at me because he didn't want to talk to them, so they had to talk to me, so I had to talk to him. So he quit, and they're like, well, you caused this disruption. You're fired. Like, cool, I was going to leave anyways because this place is terrible. So we literally struck out on our own. I had developed all this side work and brought it in. I'd known him for multiple years, and he'd had a small construction company. And so the partnership was really, we just had so much business going, but I knew he was a good person. I'd known his family for years, and I knew his business practices, and we'd worked together at this other company for a year. And so I knew how we clicked. So it made sense. And in my last run at having a construction company, I didn't start with partners, and it's a lot to take on by yourself. Yeah. I like having a life and time to myself. You can't run a construction company by yourself and have that. Yeah. So I modeled this company after, having partners in place. So Thomas and I worked out really well, but it was still overwhelming. Like, there was so much going on so fast. You're developing a company, we got 6 projects going, and it was a lot. So I'd been looking out. I kind of follow I call it the birds of the feather rule. Birds of the feather flock together. So if you're building a culture, it's like, okay, who are my birds? Like, who are the people that I trust, I like, I know that I can count on in a pinch. So I went to them and I started saying, hey, I'm looking for somebody. I don't know who this is, but I'm looking for somebody that fits with us, that fits like you and me, like who feels good, who has the same set of values that we do, who's somebody in a pinch I could say, hey, here's the keys to my house, take care of my dog, I gotta go. Yeah. I'll be back. And I know that they'll be there. And my buddy was like, my nephew's that guy. He's solid, he's smart, he's an Eagle Scout, he's in his early 30s. What's he know about construction? Not much. Like, all right. So I started thinking about it. I was like, you know what? Give me the guy that doesn't know much in construction, but I can count on him, and he's smart and can think for himself. I'll teach him construction. And so we brought him in, and he put everything into it. Yeah, he made mistakes, and, we put him in stuff that was over his head by accident, like trying to figure out where he was. But he's been with me 3 years, and I've been doing this so long that, I'm that guy that's also planning my exit strategy in the next 10. And I was like, you know what? We can count on this guy. Like, he's proven himself to be dedicated. and he's smart, and he doesn't make bad decisions. He just wasn't knowledgeable how to make the better decisions. And so we actually brought him in as a minority partner. So now I've got my people, and we've got our culture built. And then as we started adding project managers, it was the same thing. I got a random phone call from a lady I'd met through scouting that their friend's husband was out of a job. And I was like, okay, well, I trust you. I know your people, and you're telling me that this guy's good people. All right. So we interviewed him. I hired him on the spot. I was like, you seem pretty solid. And for the last year now, he's been absolutely amazing. So that's kind of how we do things. We opened up a roofing division called Alpha Team Roofing. It does siding, windows, and roofing, which I'll tie back to the other thing about long lead times. And, kind of did the same thing. I had 20 years ago, I had a guy that was my brother's high school buddy. There's a 9 years difference between me and my brother. But his high school buddy would come work for me during the summer while he was in high school. And all these years later, ran into him at my nephew's birthday party. Ran into him. It's like, hey, Ross, what are you doing? And we got to talking. I told him about this roofing division I'm starting. And he's like, I want to be a part of this. I was like, well, how are things? And we talked, and I always knew he was a good kid, and went to college, got a degree in finance, got into house flipping, till that market dried up due to interest rates. And so I said, well, I'll make you a deal. You come check this out, pay a commission. If that pans out, then we'll look at next steps, bring you on salary, and come work for me. And he's like, all right, I like that. So he did. And then he came to me actually just yesterday and was like, so what does it take to be a part of the company? I said, like a shareholder? It's like, yeah. Time? He's like, well, what about money? Like, money's always good. He says, I want to invest in this company. And I said, okay, well, you invest $20,000, I'll give you 20%. You put it in his owner's equity. He's like, done, selling one of my rentals. So point being, take your time, look for the right people by going through the right people that you already know that are good people.
Yeah.
That's the only way I do business with people.
So it sounds like you really are looking for people, number one, that are going to be a good fit, for the team, and that are going to be hard workers, devoted to the company, and you can teach them and train them on the specific skills that they need in the day-to-day job.
You got to be able to trust them. Absolutely. So our motto around here is work hard, play hard. So everybody's on salary. I don't track hours. I don't care, because I've got, your software to tell me how the project's going. I tell them flat out, if you can get everything that you need to be done and everybody's happy and everything is good to go in 1 hour a day, go fishing. What do I care?
It's all about results.
It's all about results. So you can't be that micromanager, in my opinion. That's always like, what you gotta come to the office and you gotta put in 8 hours a day. Why? It might take hours. I mean, hell, sometimes it takes 14 hours, but on other days it takes no hours. Yeah. So it averages. But so that's how I do it, and that's what's really been working for me. My employees are happy. Nobody wants to leave. When things get tight, everybody knuckles down. When I tell them I need them for a weekend, they come, because they also know that we'll take care of them. I've got everybody on profit sharing, so it's everybody in everybody's best interest to do well. And then I just instituted a bonus program, so that keeps them in their sales mind always engaged. I give them bonuses for change orders that are upsells on the project that the client wants. I do not give bonuses for change orders that are hidden conditions, because I don't want to create a space where all of a sudden everything's broken. Yeah. And they're trying to charge our client. I mean, that the wrong person will take advantage of that. But if the client wants to go from a standard patio door to a stack system, and one's $5,000 and one's $30,000, well, that's their prerogative. Yeah, we show them, we bid it, and if they want to do it, that's great. And if the project manager made that upsell, well, I give him a pretty hefty commission on it.
That's great.
So that keeps them motivated.
How's the profit share work?
The profit share, so in full disclosure, I'm still kind of pondering and working that out. What I've done recently, just to keep things motivating at the end of the year, is I looked at what we had. I set aside 10% out of the net income and then divvied that one up, which, I mean, at that case, I mean, we had 200,000 in the bank. So, I mean, those were pretty little. That didn't include the owners. That was just employees, which we don't have that money. So there was some pretty fat checks.
Nice. That's great, man.
So I don't have a direct system yet, but I'm talking to my buddy that does all my personal investments, and we're trying to come up with like a 401k plan. I mean, I want people to be able to afford to live, have the ability to grow, to live their dreams. Hence the bonus program. Like, if I'm paying you 85, 90K a year, okay, that's stagnant and you can work around that, have a nice life. But with a bonus program, like, ooh, if I really pay attention and work hard, I can pull 130 this year. Okay, cool, go do it. We even give bonuses if they bring a project to the table. We give them 1% of the, what is it? I'll have to look at our structure, but for like a really large project, it's like 1% of the project price, which doesn't sound like a lot of 1%, but if it's, $750,000 and you said, hey, call this guy, and it turns into something, that's not bad.
Yeah, no, that's great.
So,
I love the focus on, again, rewarding, results, and it's all just sounds like very kind of, it's a self-driving, self-motivating system that you put in place that makes people want to go above and beyond. They're not being forced to. It's, hey, they've got an incentive, they got some upside, they're excited to go do it.
Well,
I think it's,
you got to remember, every job's a vehicle. A vehicle gets people from point A to point B. They're trying to make money, put money on the table. My goal is to have the best and keep them, and then give them the ability to make their life what they want it to be. That's why I'm not stickler on time, because little Johnny has a football game. Well, I'm a father. I don't want to miss in the football game or the soccer game or the karate, night. You need to go do these things. Structure your schedule to where the projects are handled, the clients are happy, and you can go do these things.
What do you do in regards to building the culture and really kind of trying to motivate all of your trade partners and kind of the subs and everyone that you're using?
So the subs, the best thing I found so those are all different aspects. So subs, one is we always treat them with respect, and we try to have a lot of information, all the little things they want. Oh, here's an extra copy of the plans. Great. Here's some notes. Hey, let's go meet and talk through this. Great. Let me give you a deposit. Give me paperwork for the deposit so you're not working out of your pocket. Oh, great. And then we try to pay fast, because, most subs are guys in trucks and they're living, paycheck to paycheck. So, with having a project manager on site every single day, he can see, is the work done? Is he ready to be paid? Is the work good enough? Is everybody happy? Cool, pay the man. So we give them all the information they need. We're there to support them. We give deposits so they've got capital work with us, not out of their pocket, and then we try to pay them at a pretty reasonable speed on the back end, usually within a week. We don't pay same day, but because we have accountants and it needs to process, but we try to keep it like, hey, you're going to be done, turn in your invoice so I can get it running through the chain. Because then it's the project manager that's the last line that decides whether the guy actually gets paid or not. So if we do our part to make sure their paperwork's in place by the time they're done, then we can pull the trigger on that check really fast.
So do you have people in-house that are managing all the accounting, or is that an outsourced service?
It is outsourced. I think you might be familiar with them. My staff, your staff out of Pflugerville, Texas. Absolutely amazing. They specialize in general contractors. They have a whole team, and they are worth every penny I spend on them.
And so is that
done me great.
Is that's the kind of the primary function of all the job costing is getting done through them?
Yeah. So on our end, we bid and we manage on their end. They track all the receipts, the job costing, put together the invoices for us. And man, if we have a client that calls that's concerned about money or doesn't understand something, Lorena over there is quick to get on a call or a Zoom with the client and help sort it out. And so
that's
far,
awesome.
she's never been wrong. Like when a client's like, "Well, this isn't right," I'm like, "I'm pretty sure it is. I bet dollars to donuts that you're wrong."
Yeah.
And every time so far, that even when I wasn't sure, it's like, maybe this one's not right. We get Lorraine on a Zoom, and she starts going through it and pulls up the invoices and shows all the tickets, and he's like, "Oh, you're right. Okay, I'll pay the bill." It's like, so they are really a huge credit to our success, because not only does it, for what we pay, we couldn't hire somebody full time, and if we did hire somebody full time, I don't think they'd be as good. Because these people are really good, and they have like 8 or 9 people on staff, and each person has what they do. They've got a really slick system.
Yeah.
And like, man, I can get on Slack, ask a question, and get an answer. So yeah, they've been crucial for our development.
What would you say you see like the biggest benefits of doing, that level of detail, the job costing? Because again, I see a lot of contractors who, they put a lot of effort into the estimating and selling the jobs, but they're, it's kind of a second afterthought. I don't need, it'll just kind of all come out in the wash. We'll make our profit somehow. Like,
well, it's really twofold. One, you have to know your numbers. You have to figure out like, oh, we forgot to put this in, or keep finding that we're falling short, like underbidding this consistently. The second thing, it's super crucial for us because our company is one of those oddballs that we're cost plus. A lot of people think it's weird. I think it's great because as a consumer, when I get my truck worked on, I've got a mechanic that shows me how much the parts are, tells me what his shop rate is, how many hours it's going to take. I go, okay, I understand this. I go to another shop and they're like, it's this much money. Oh, okay, well, what are you going to do? Well, we're going to change out these parts and fix your truck. Well, what parts are you using? Oh, we're going to use quality parts. Well, what's your labor rate? Because this seems kind of high. So we've all been there. We all have our story. So I actually started doing this 15 years ago. And it wasn't to be cheap or anything like that. I just didn't like the shell game. Hey, Joe's Supply House, when I bring my client in, don't tell them my price. I need to make sure that they don't know. For me, it just relieved all that confusion. Like, hey, you get our cost, we get 30% off on tile, you get 30% off on tile. We're going to mark it up. But we're not, for every general contractor, puts a percentage on, because that's how we make our money. I'm just giving you an added advantage of having our cost on it. So the transparency has really moved mountains. It's been argued, oh, well, you're leaving money on the table because you could have marked this up or you could have made this margin, ... Well, maybe. But on the flip side, since we're not putting the Murphy 10%, 15% in the middle of it plus our markup, they understand the name of the game, that, if the one column goes up 10%, but one other column stay at the true number, and quite often, like electrical is one that usually goes down a little bit because we get in there, oh, that's not that bad. They get to benefit from that. And what we found is the clients do benefit, but if a job goes from 6 weeks to 10 weeks, we're still billing for our time because we're hired to get a job done. We're not selling them on a price. And the two things that fixed price contractors continuously complain about, it took longer than we thought. We lost our butt on project management. The materials went up. We lost our butt on materials. We don't have that problem. So, there's an argument for both sides. Am I losing money by doing it that way, or am I not?
Yeah.
I'd say it depends on how well the job goes.
Yeah. And I certainly think as you get to larger size projects, it definitely can be
Well, and back to the accounting, that's why it's so important, because we have to track our receipts and we cost code them. Everybody should be doing this anyways.
Yeah.
But we turn them into my staff, your staff. There's a system. It's too easy. It's on your phone. And then they code it and put it in the books. So by the time I'm done, I can look at every receipt I have on every job, know what it's coded to, get a copy of it just by clicking on it, and see where we're actually at. And then with your software, I've got my actual versus estimated. I could see real quick, like, where we are. Are those numbers green or are they red? Like, what's going on here? What's the delta of these red ones? Why is there a delta? Was it a process issue on our end where something got put in the wrong bucket, or was it underbid? So, information fast.
What led you to originally kind of want to implement a system like JobTread?
So, oh wow, about 10 years ago, with my last construction company, people like you didn't exist. There was one out there called, I think it's called Sage. And It was like $30,000 to get into. I was like, I can't afford that. So I sat down with one of my buddies that was a developer, and I created an Excel sheet. I kid you not, it was 47 pages long. It self-calculated and totaled. All the numbers would flow to a single sheet. It was impressive. Like, we spent so much time on this, and it worked awesomely. Like, all of your stuff that you've got in JobTread, how we can build it, I had it there. All the numbers worked, the percentage markups, the totals, waste factors, I had it all. I spent so much time on this thing because there wasn't anything out there. And then Excel did an update, screwed up my formulas, and then we had to go through and fix it. And that happened 2 or 3 times. And quite frankly, another company had come along, one of your competitors. We hired on with them or signed on with them rather. And they did great until they didn't do great. They didn't really plan out their growth, and their platform got really bad and clunky. And so then we went to one of their competitors and got trained up in their software. It was really good until they sold out and they got really bad. And then we tried another company we only stayed with them for 2 months because their platform was so laughable that it was like, this is never going to work. And then quite frankly, it was my staff, your staff, that was on the hunt for me and found you guys. And then after interviewing with you, I was like, wow, this is new, but man, look what they're doing. Look at the effort that the JobTread is putting into their product and how they're listening. And we needed stuff, and y'all made stuff happen for me. And I was like, this is good. So what drove me to a platform to build an Excel sheet was, you need to know your numbers. I mean, you got to cost your job to know where you're at.
Yeah.
Then it drove once it was being done by people that actually can work on electronics and do these things, it made more sense. But quite frankly, it took finding y'all at the right time and when we were in a need. And so far, we've been extremely happy. And obviously the accounting team's really happy with you guys because I know they're pretty well plugged in these days.
Yep.
But no, it's if somebody's not using a platform, they're not faking. They're looking too small.
Yeah.
You gotta have one. It's what's out there, and it's part of my sales tool. And people are like, oh, it's expensive. I put a technology fee in my bid.
Nice.
It's usually between $300 and $500 per client to offset the cost of it.
It's awesome.
And so, I mean, if you're really customer driven, and I mean, I've got a messaging board. Like, people love that. Everything's posted. I mean, if you're not doing that, you're really not trying to grow and put together your business to a point where you're at a pinnacle. You're just not ever going to make it. So
yeah, I mean, it's clear you've really kind of dialed in, the people, the processes, and the technology to create this, the system that has really helped you build your company.
It's about systems. If any builders out there hasn't read the E-Myth for Contractors, you need to read the E-Myth for Contractors, because you will start to understand systems, and systems are key. Everything's got to flow. I flow chart everything to look at our systems. I use a software called Liffey. It's like $100 a year, and it's all for it's a watered down Visio. And we flow chart everything to look at it and go like, what if we did this instead? And then we're like, okay, we like that, print it, implement it, put it in our policy.
That's awesome. So, when you think back about when you started the company, or just kind of putting yourself in, maybe someone else's shoes who's earlier on, like what advice would you give them? What do you wish that you would have known that now that might help them to kind of skip over a couple of those hard lessons that you've had to take along the way?
Get out of your own head. You got to get out of your own head. Oh, am I going to be good enough? Or, oh, I got to make this. Like, you got to know your value. Everybody told me this, and I couldn't listen because I felt too desperate. You got to take that desperation and chunk it. Because if you do things out of desperation, it's usually going to be wrong. It's going to usually end up costing you. So know your worth, know your value, know your values. Know your processes, know what you got to make to take home. Everybody's different, and then you got to evaluate everything. And if you have any red flags that pop up with a client, walk away. It's not worth it, because you're going to lose every single time. They have the money, you're doing the work. Oh, I'll bill them. I'll file a lien. They don't care. File. If they're not moving, you're not getting paid. So my best advice is like, really, use your head. Like don't worry about the small stuff. Know your value. I mean, God, I don't know how you can sum that up into like a word, but just know you're worth it. Know what you're worth. Make good decisions. If something looks too good to be true, probably is. And just make good decisions and calculate out everything. Question. And one thing I do is I don't make any decisions when something's in front of me. I'll let it set. Oh, I need to buy this. Let it set for a day. This email came in and this client's just completely out of line. I got to fix this. No, let it set. Let it set a day. Then reply, because you'll be at a totally different headspace. So, just use your wits, use your gut, use your instincts. Make smart decisions, weigh out everything, and we're in business. Everybody wants something. Everybody wants it for less or wants a deal, and just know your limits. I mean, I hope I answered that question. I feel like I'm rambling at this point.
That is all great advice. I appreciate you sharing that. I got one final question here. Earlier you kind of alluded to, kind of sort of starting to think about your exit, your 10-year plan. I mean, what's your vision? What do you think about? Where do you want this to be in 10 years? Where do you want to be?
On a ranch in the middle of nowhere. So when Thomas and I started this business, I said, look, this is a 10-year plan. Neither one of us wants to be in construction till we're 80. Like, we know people, those people don't want to do it. We got other stuff to do. So what I did when we started is I calculated out our overhead minus payroll, calculated what our potential profit margins were going to be. I said, here's what we're going to do. It's a 60-40 split. 60% always stays in the company until we hit over 100,000 just liquid cash. 40% is our payroll. It actually ended up being vice versa, because we decided we want to make more money. But in the net of it, we stuck to that rule. It flipped 20%, big deal. But we stuck to that rule. And in that first year that we did that cash flow, by not putting our hand in the cookie jar, we had $150,000 just cash in the bank. And the accountants are like, you got to do something with this money. So the point being, to answer your question, is I drew out a 10-year plan, and I drew out what I thought was a good growth plan. My goal my first year was to do $1 million. My goal my second year was to do $2 million. I don't think that's a lot to ask for a startup. My goal for my third year was to do $4 million. Now we're year 4. I didn't account for the economy taking a hit, but I don't think we're going to do that $4 million this year, but I think we're sure going to be in a solid 3. But the point is, I mapped it all out. Well, how many jobs will this take on this average? How much is it the making? How many project managers am I going to need to make this happen? Because my goal was to get to a $10 million company in under 10 years.
Love it.
Because in 10 years, at that growth and that profit margin, our salaries go up, our bonuses are big, we're making life plans, we're buying the property that we want. So by the time in 10 years, my goal would have been to have those assets paid off. So when we sell, we could sell at market value, which is, 1.2 to 1.5 of the gross revenue, $13 million, $13 million after taxes, split with my partner, a few $1 million in the bank, looks pretty good. So that sounds great, because along the way, we're also making other investments. We started a roofing company. Well, now it's on the same growth track.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we pull out in 10. I got 2 of those. I will have 2. We started a pool company. It's starting to pick up a head of steam. And so I'm going to try to fast track that one as well. So we have 3. And part of our growth structure is to take the money, instead of buying boats and bigger houses, is we're looking to buy commercial space. We're looking, what is that next investment? We've talked to companies that do private lending, and the cool part is, if you're the guy with the money, you're the guy putting the money in the lending company, manages it, and you make profits on your money. So we're looking at those things that turn into mailbox money.
There you go.
Apartment buildings being built. Guess what? They use investors all the time. You can plunk down $300,000, get 7% on that, 8%, 10%, and that just comes in. So we're using these businesses really as traction and a launch pad for other investments that will create money without all the work. And, I'm 48, and so in another 8 years, sticking to my plan, I'm not going to be like, oh, I'm 80 and retired and I can't do anything because everything hurts. I won't be there yet. We'll have time, we'll have money, and we've spent so much time with our families and kids, we don't feel like we've missed out. None of my employees are missing time. So overall, it creates a good culture, good life, and, you do a good job. You take care of people, you take care of your clients, you do the right thing, you stay above board. Money is a byproduct. Don't worry about chasing the money, chase doing right. And the money is just a byproduct.
Man, well, Dylan, I appreciate you coming on and sharing all this. I mean, you basically just laid out a nice little 10-year plan there, for anyone that they could follow. And, you've done great work so far. I'm excited to watch you be able to continue executing on that, because, again, you've got it really dialed in. You know what you want. You got a great team in place, understand what your customers need. You're delivering great services there. And, it's just really exciting. And, we appreciate the opportunity to just be here and, kind of watch how you build this company, because it's definitely a good model that I hope others will take these lessons that you've shared with them and implement in their business, so that they can have the same level of success that you are.
Well, cool. Well, thank you very much. And I appreciate you inviting me on.
Yeah, it's good to have you. Thank you, Dylan. We'll
All right.
talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of Builder Stories. We hope you enjoyed the conversation and gained valuable insights that can help you in your journey along the way. Don't forget to subscribe to the show and leave us a review. And as always, if you or someone you know has a story to share, please contact us at builderstories.com. We'd love to hear from you. I'm Eric Fortenberry, and remember, every builder has a unique story. Keep building yours.